Let's talk a bit about software translation. The types of projects or file types you'll see is, it might be Java property files, it might be straight XML, it might be .NET, really could be a whole variety of files or file types. The trick there is to avoid cutting and pasting. All too often, translation services firms will request from the engineers they work with to just put the content in an Excel file. And that's okay, but you never want to have to do cutting and pasting. Hopefully if you're doing that in Excel or whether it's a text file, you're doing something programmatically. Cutting and pasting opens up the door for errors because of course it's very monotonous work. It's easy to create an error, and you can also create issues in encoding. If you're jumping from one program to another, especially if it's in a language where the font is not, or the typeface is not familiar, you might cause issues for the engineer. So when possible, you'll want to stay in the file type. So if it's a Java property file, you work in that file type. Another point to consider is that the translation has to be very concise. And that's something where you would need to work with the engineering team to understand how strict are the length limitations. And if they're very strict, you might want to put in some sort of counter to make sure that the character count is identical or less. That can be very challenging in translation. If at all possible for the engineers, you'd want to have a little bit of leeway, especially when you have languages that expand, like a German or Spanish or Italian, where you're going to see 25 to 40% expansion. Another challenge is compound nouns, especially in German. That may create challenges in wrapping if you have, say, an error message or something that might need to wrap on screen. The last point to make is functional review. You'll definitely want to do a review or have the editor do a thorough analysis of the translation when it's in context. So if at all possible, if the review team can look at the software in context as the user would do it, that's really the best way to proceed.